Well, I think, I guess, RG, the first concern I would have is why aren't we covering 700 to 800,000 children in Texas now who are eligible under the current income standards? And rather than take our eye off the ball to cover other children at higher income levels, shouldn't we take care of that business first, and then we can have a debate about what the proper role ought to be? And what we shouldn't be debating is whether the current successful program should be reauthorized. As I said earlier, everyone I know in Congress supports that. To me, the tragedy about some of this debate is that some families are put in their concerns have been raised about whether the program will continue or not because of some of the gamesmanship happening in Washington. That is, to me, out of bounds and shouldn't be happening. We ought to go ahead and settle the issue as far as current levels, make sure we reach out to more kids who qualify but are not enrolled, and then we can continue during the course of the presidential campaign and beyond about what the proper role of the federal government is when it comes to health care.
And you keep mentioning the presidential race, but you're up for re-election next year. Rick Noriega has already tried to make this an issue with you for not voting to override the president's veto.
Well, I don't want to make, I'm not running for re-election here today. There'd be plenty of time for that. But I will say that I voted for a program that continued the S-CHIP program, expanded federal spending by 40%. I voted against a bill that would have raised taxes to increase federal spending for this program by 140%. And I think there is a question of fiscal responsibility and of how much we want to grow the size of the federal role when it comes to health care, whether we just want to cover low-income kids, because as I said, that's beyond any dispute, but whether it ought to cover adults and whether we ought to cover middle-income families under a program designed to cover low-income kids.
It's not about doing a photo op here in Austin last week in a CHIP call center. It's about being in Washington and voting and standing up for the children of the state of Texas.
When he votes against the S-CHIP and then tries to come down here to some call center and say he's very concerned about how it is that more people are not signed up, that there's all these folks eligible and we need to get them taken care of before we expand the program. We have a word for that back in my part of the country, and it has to do with the male species of the male of the bovine species.